Hello, it's Philip Taylor speaking from Richmond Green Chambers in London. This morning I'm looking at a book which has come to us from Edward Elgar Publishing Limited. They're an independent family publishers based in Cheltenham and elsewhere. They offer a first-class service to us for academic books, for the academic community legally, and they also cover areas which will be of great interest to both practitioners and commentators alike. And the book I'm looking at this morning has got the title Implementing Environmental Law, a particularly important area which in fact Elgar cover in quite substantial detail. This book has been edited by two people, Paul Martin and Amanda Kennedy. It's a hardback and an e-book, and it's also available as an Elgar online version, and you can get the information in the book itself. I'll show you where that is in a moment. It's part of the IUCN Academy of Environmental Law series of books from Elgar, and I think they've surpassed themselves here with what I think is a very useful commentary on where we are at the moment in 2015 with serious environmental issues which we are facing, and trying to see how we are going to grapple with some of the issues. Now, Elizabeth and I have looked at the book, we had a discussion about it, and we've come up with a generic title, if you like, for a number of these books from Elgar. But we've said Paul Martin and Amanda Kennedy, I do apologise, have written another fascinating study on environmental law, and it's a brilliant best friend from Edward Elgar, which is very much in keeping with what Elgar actually do produce for us, and we're very grateful to them for the work they do. Let's look at the book first of all. It's a hardback. There it is. You can see the front. You can see it's part of that IUCN Academy at the bottom there. That is the spine, and then at the back you've got some basic details about the book, which I'll be talking about in a few minutes in the review itself. It's a hardback, as I said. It's quite a heavy book in terms of weight. It's actually got 360 odd pages. The index is page numbered, so it's reasonably easy to find things. It is quite a detailed index, which you'll be pleased to hear about. There's the index, which starts there on page 339. Then what you've got, the way that this is structured, is you actually have at the end of each chapter, you do have footnoting, but at the end of each chapter you have the references. It's alphabetically done, and it sets out exactly where the authorities are for all of the assertions made, which is very much a standard sort of approach which Elgar have adopted. Now, the series of books, this is the IUCN Academy of Environmental Law series. This is the list of books which they have produced so far, and they are all of a very high quality and very detailed. It's also produced in a support with the New Zealand Law Foundation, which I will mention as well. That is mentioned there on the inside cover. So I think they should know about that too. Now, if you want to go to the Elgar online system, you'll find the information is there on that page. Then we have the contents. It has a list of contributors, and we have a whole series, 14 chapters in total, and of course with the chapter heading you get the names of the contributors. Then some relatively sparse information about the two the actual contributors, including the two editors, Paul Martin and Amanda Kennedy, both of whom are from Australia, from the University of New England in Armidale, New South Wales, Australia. So you've got a lot of contributors there, and then there's a fourth page in total. Then you go straight into the main introduction, A Jurisprudence of Environmental Governance, and they start. The history of science shows that the evolution of scholarly investigation follows two lines of development. The first is that innovations undergo a transformation from relatively low efficiency to high efficiency, and the second pattern, evolutionary pattern, is that in most fields deepening of knowledge leads to differentiation into specialisms. Well, I think you say that about rather a lot of things, personally. Anyway, let's just show you the book. There's not a lot. You'll be very pleased to know there's not a lot of footnoting, but the book is certainly very, very detailed, and it's really looking at it from the point of view very much of the global community, which of course is what a lot of what we've got to do today is all about. Now, the short review we've written about this book is as follows. What we're saying is the book, Implementing Environmental Law, is rightly described as an insightful work, nice word, insightful, which explores why implementation of environmental law is too often ineffective in achieving effective environmental governance. And it provides, the book itself provides careful analysis and innovative proposals to help improve the practical effectiveness of legal instruments for environmental governance. And that effectively is the purpose of the book. And of course a growing number of organisations, including the people linked with this publication, the IUCN, and then other organisations like UNEP, and the Organisation of American Studies, have voiced concerns that legal instruments that have developed to pursue more effective environmental governance over the last 40 years are not creating a sufficiently effective and efficient system of environmental governance. In other words, the overseeing, if I can put it in slightly more simple English, the overseeing of and development of policies to protect the environment, because that's really what this is about. And so what we're saying is that there hasn't been enough done, if I can put it in very crude terms. So in response to the challenges that they say are there, and they are there in my submission, certainly, this book, very timely, explores ways to bridge the significant implementation gap between the objectives of environmental law and the real-world outcomes of its application. In other words, the practical application and results of the policies that we have. And of course there are a formidable list of specialist and expert contributors who outline the different forms of law, from international conventions down to inter-parties agreements, and they cover things such as non-government codes and standards in detail. And therefore it is actually very heavy on content. It's not actually, I didn't find it the easiest book, again, to read, because I think you have to have quite a substantial understanding of this particular area of environmental law. But nevertheless, it's a very good contribution. Let me conclude by saying that the overarching discussion highlights these diverse factors which we have that impact upon implementing environmental law in practice, and the view concerning both limitations and opportunities for effective innovation in legal governance. They actually talk about innovation right at the beginning, because of course in a free society, be controversial here, in order to have innovation you actually have to have markets and a bit of capitalism, though some communists probably wouldn't agree with that. But however, my suggestion is that for effective innovation, in other words, to secure some form of proper policy that can be effective and protect the environment, you've therefore got to have innovative views, and that's really what they're saying. Now finally, let me say the title is a comprehensive reference point, and this is basically how they're describing it, for academics and policymakers alike, and it sheds light on how to achieve significant improvements in the effective application of environmental law. And that is a global problem today, no question about it. This is a book from Australia, and you can understand immediately why they are talking about that, because about the issue of the environment there, because of some of the problems they are beginning to face themselves. We in Europe are aware of it, of course, but certainly in the Pacific Rim, the whole of the Pacific Rim, there are major problems that need to be looked at, and frankly action needs to be taken. No question about it. The question then is really how we're going to go about it, if they're even bothered to do that. And that, I'm afraid, is the bottom line, and the difficulties that we sometimes are facing. So Let me conclude again finally by saying that, with a big thank you to Elgar. They offer the very best in legal research materials for us. That's for the student, the postgraduate, and of course the dedicated researcher and commentator. They're high quality publications, and I'm really very grateful to Elgar for bringing together all these people with their expertise in one nice little focal point which we've got, which is called Implementing Environmental Law. And we just have another look at it there. There's the front, and then there is the spine, and then there's the back. There are some quotes from various people which highlight exactly what I've tried to put forward in the review. If we just open the book right in the middle here, possible legal obligations to consult. That's right in the middle of the book. Then you can see there's each of the chapters basically has a conclusion, which is very helpful, and then you do have, as I've indicated, a lot of reference material right at the back of each of the chapters, most of it coming from Australia, I have to say, and you can see there the points. And then, for instance, implementing international water agreements. Again, you can see water being one of the most fundamental requirements that we have. The book is excellent. I'm very pleased with it. I'm very grateful, as I've said, to Elgar for producing this material for us. We couldn't do our jobs without having this information, so thank you to all concerned for an excellent statement, in this case, of implementing environmental law on a global basis. Thank you. Good luck with what you're doing as well. Bye-bye.